Alrighty, we are live. We are live for episode 5, the law of attraction. We're about to dive in real deep to this. This is probably the most controversial law of them all. Whether you hate it or love it, we're going to talk about it today. So if you are new here, my name is Logan Manzanares. I'm a business owner, I'm a fitness professional, transformed well over 2,000 people's lives through this little thing we call health and fitness. Real estate investor, a husband, a father, and one of the most grateful people on this planet. And today I got two awesome guests with me today, Mr. John Bodner, Mr. Timothy Cruz, on here today, talking with me about the law of attraction, what it is, how to utilize it, and what it actually means. So before we get into it, John, you want to give a little introduction to all the folks listening at home, who you are?
Absolutely. So I am a coach at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. I've been going through quite a lot of the belief breakthrough process for my own self and really figuring out how these laws truly impact my life and how the belief breakthrough process has impacted my life and not looking back. So it's been a journey and I intend to keep on going.
Glad to have you on here today, Mr. John Bodner. And Mr. Timothy Cruz, do you mind telling people back at home who you are?
Absolutely. My name is Tim Cruz. I am one of the BSB Wealthy Body coaches here at Wealthy Body Coaching. I am a self-proclaimed meathead who just loves picking heavy stuff up and setting it back down. But what I'm really passionate about and what I really enjoy, what fills my cup, is really just helping people break through and get the most out of their life. My true passion and calling is helping people realize their greatest potential. So becoming the strongest, wealthiest person that they can possibly be. That's in body, spirit, mind, and soul. So that's what I love doing, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. All right, fellas, well, let's go ahead and let's dive into this law of attraction. So what is the law of attraction? The law of attraction states that like attracts like. We attract into our lives the people, things, situations, and experiences that match our deepest beliefs and thoughts. We attract what we think about most. Our dominant and persistent thoughts eventually manifest into reality. So Tim, I'll let you start off with this one. Tell us, in layman's terms, what is the law of attraction?
Like attracts like. So what we think about, we bring about. So I think that's about as simple as I can make it.
It's about as simple as it gets. I love it. John, anything you want to add to that?
That's pretty well summed up. But yeah, we get what we think about, and we don't get what we don't think about.
Man, this one's gonna be really easy today, right?
I do want to jump in though real quick. I don't understand why this one is so controversial. Is it simply because of that book, The Secret, and all the crazy stuff that guru guy did? Because when we think about this from just like plain and simple, when you think about something, you tend to act in accordance with what you think about. So like if you're focused on losing weight and you want to lose weight, you're going to start noticing and thinking about ways to lose weight. You're going to start noticing ways that you've been acting that is not in line with what you are thinking about. So it's not nearly as woo-woo as it sounds. Like it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And I think the reason why it's controversial when people think of the woo-woo stuff is because they don't understand the power of the unconscious mind. And so what you said, you're 100% right on, is that when you actually do get focused and you get clear on what you want, it really is that you start to find evidence of it being true or that you're capable of achieving it. But most people, they live life unconsciously on autopilot, and they have no rhyme or reason why they do the things they do. Like they have no reason that they wake up at 7 a.m. every single day besides they have to get to work, right? They have no reason why they eat a specific meal, or they have no reason why they do the things on the weekends that they do. They watch a certain show. Like they don't really know why they do that. They just kind of go through the motions, right? And so let's kind of keep on going, because that's actually going to be a point that we're going to touch on here in a little bit, is basically the idea of like being conscious versus being unconscious. And that's what I think really is the main piece of this, right? But before we get on that, let's talk about this. Like thoughts are not abstractions, right? Thoughts are things and they manifest in our external world. And so I think to kind of piggyback on that point is like thoughts are important. Like what we think in our head, like that stuff is important. It's like, and questioning them, like, why do we think that? And questioning, like, is it true? And the next question is like, does it serve us? And really just trying to get a better understanding of our perspective and our view in the world, and ultimately, why? Like, why do we think that? Why do we do things we do? I think it's really just taking that step back and trying to understand, like, what are these thoughts up here telling us? So, Tim, bring you back in here to kind of piece that together with your initial question of why people think that the law of attraction is woo or controversial.
Well, what you said just completely makes sense. When I think about thoughts are not inert abstractions, thoughts are things and they manifest in our external world. Basically, what the slide says, it takes me back to just a couple episodes ago, like our first one, when we talk about our beliefs, they dictate our thoughts, which dictate our actions. So if we can reverse engineer what our results are, so our actions are going to, the next step is actions dictate results. So if we can reverse engineer that, and we will start with our results, we generally can trace that all the way back to some belief that is dictating the thought process that's going on in our head. So I think it's maybe a drastic oversimplification of what's going on here, but that's essentially the law of attraction. Is really we're getting not to the thoughts, but actually the beliefs that are behind the thoughts that dictate the unconscious reel of thought that's going on in our head, which then dictates the actions that we take every single day, which then dictates the results that we get out of life.
Yeah. And so to put it like, what I picked up from that is that basically we have this chain, right? And the chain starts with your beliefs, then it comes to your thoughts, then it comes to the words you use, and then it comes to your actions, and then through your actions you get an outcome. And I think most people focus on outcomes. Would that be fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And so when you focus on an outcome, you need to have a goal, you need to have a purpose, you need to have an outcome in mind. But without having these other chains in the link, or at least understanding that they're there, and understanding that like without having one of these and without skipping one, you might not have a truly, like, not get true clarity on why you're feeling the way you do, or why aren't you using the right words? Like, you want this goal, but how come you're not using the right words? How come you think instead of do? How can you try instead of act? Right? So like, maybe I got to back this up. Back up to my thoughts. It's like, why am I thinking this? Like, why do I not believe that I can get there? And then all of a sudden you go back to your, like, I guess that goes back to your beliefs, right? It's like, why do I believe I actually can't achieve this goal?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So John, go and tie that in to what you were going to say on the slide.
Well, I kind of want to go back to why it's controversial and tie that back in.
Go for it.
So a big part of why I believe it's controversial is because it puts that responsibility on people to get what, like you're saying, oh, you get what you think about, then if something bad happens, all of a sudden it becomes that person's fault, right? Or that's how they view it. When really what it can be is like, yes, you do get what you think about, you don't get what you don't think about, but until you are consciously aware of what your subconscious is doing, you can't really be held perfectly responsible for those manifestations. So by having it being this idea that whatever you get is because of you, that can be very difficult for people to accept, especially when they look at it as being blamed for their circumstances.
You know, the responsibility is powerful, right? Like, what is a Spider-Man, right? You know, with great power comes great responsibility, but most people don't want responsibility. And I think it's important just to understand that, like, most people don't, and like be okay with it, but understand that if you do want to take control of your life and you do want to if you do want to get certain outcomes, like, you must be in control. You must be in control of not just your actions, you must be in control of your words, your thoughts, and of course your beliefs as well. Right?
Responsibility is a good thing, an empowering thing. It's not
Yeah.
something that is used to blame you for something going wrong.
Yeah. And so this is actually really cool, right? And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why people, when they understand the law of attraction, like, okay, I'm going to think myself into getting results, right? But the reason why it fails for most people is most people believe, well, because first off, most people don't know what they want, and they focus on more what they don't want versus what they do want. And so this is like a prime example. We've all sat down in front of people before, clients, prospects, who are trying to lose weight, right? And 9 times out of 10, the first things coming out of their mouth is like what they don't want, right? Like I don't want to look a certain way. I don't want to feel a certain way, right? And ultimately, like the more you think about what you don't want, what ends up happening?
Get exactly that.
Get
You get,
closer and closer to it every day.
that's right, because it's the thing on your mind. And so you're like, okay, I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be fat. And then all of a sudden you start to see evidence of yourself being fat, right? You start to see evidence of you're like, oh, like I should have grabbed a salad versus grabbing a peanut butter cookie, right? And then all of a sudden they use that as an example of why like they're just like their identity of being a fat person, like it sticks to them, right? Because they start to see evidence of that where they're like, hey, I'm going to be a fit person. And then all of a sudden they see evidence where they had ate to their plan the entire day, and all of a sudden they grab a cookie. It's like, it's all right. I ate to my plan all throughout the day. And now all of a sudden they start to see evidence of themselves being a fit person rather than the fat person, right? So, John, tell me, like, where have you seen this example show up where people think about what they don't want and get it?
So my wife has she'll be fine with me saying this. She knows that it's true. She has spent a lot of her time or a lot of her life being one of those people who constantly focuses on what she doesn't want. If she's in a difficult work environment, she'll talk about, she'll complain about not the work per se, but just about how it isn't her passion, it isn't what she wants to be doing. And then the people around her are doing the same thing, and she falls into, feeling so negatively about work. And until we started talking about these concepts, I was really worried about that, because every time she talk about work, even though that it's something that is currently providing a positive thing for us, which is the ability to live the life that we want thanks to the income, she's only viewing it as this negative thing of, I hate the environment. I don't like the job I'm doing. And the more she talked about it, the more she focused on not wanting to be stuck in that job forever, the more sucked into it she was getting. And now that she's actually focusing on what she does want, she actually told me just the other day, she's like, okay, John, I want to sit down with you and come up with a plan so that I can do something different here pretty soon. And that's really cool, because that's the difference between focusing on what she doesn't want, not wanting to be stuck in this job, but being stuck there forever because that's what she's thinking about. And now she's thinking about what she does want and actually taking steps to get out of it. It's very, very powerful.
And it goes in line with our core values that we talk about almost every day. And that's like, everybody can find problems, but it's the person who can find the solution. That's the person who wins, right? So like, find the solution. And like, now that you helped her kind of get to this point of like, hey, like, I understand you get the problem, but what are you gonna do about it? Like, you can continue to focus on it and continue to have that problem, or are you gonna find the solution, right? And now taking steps, like putting it on paper, like, here are the steps for me to get out of a position that I'm not happy with. That's a solution, right? And what does that do? Like, is that forward thinking, or is that backward thinking, right? It's like, which one of those people do you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Tim, what's your thoughts on this one?
So this kind of takes me back to when my dad was teaching me how to drive as a kid. So grew up in a really small rural town. I started driving much earlier than the law would say that you should start driving. Like 9 or 10 years old, I was driving on my own back and forth to work. But I remember when he was first teaching me how to drive, he was telling me, okay, so you want to split the lanes. You want to be in between the dotted line and the white line. And he was telling me that, you got to just stay in the middle. Don't crowd either side. And I was always highly conscious of the center line, because I did, like, the oncoming traffic was always kind of scary. And so I would focus right on that center line. And wouldn't you know it, I always would slowly drift to the center line, like exactly where I was focusing, even though that was what I was trying to avoid. And so then the moment he saw me doing that, he saw me like focusing on the line, he said, hey, no, look ahead, look in the middle of the lane. So as soon as I started looking in the middle of the lane, my drive path went right to the middle of the lane. So, I mean, it's a really simple analogy, but that's essentially what we're talking about, right? Like, if you're someone who, maybe you got out of a really bad relationship, or you had some relational issues in the past, and you're constantly focused on like, I don't want a bad relationship. Well, guess what? You're going to constantly be finding those people that fit exactly what you're looking for. You're setting yourself up. Same with fitness and health. Like, if you're constantly focused on, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be ugly, I don't want to be unhealthy, you're just going to be drifting towards that center line the entire time. So instead, like, one of my daily practices, and I actually have a little journal here to prove it, is I write down my goals every single day. And I don't write down my anti-goals, my not wants. I write down what I want to accomplish every single day. And what that does is it it puts me in a state, or at least a state of thinking, where now my actions are going to start lining up with those daily thoughts or those daily goals.
Like your brain goes into, how do I achieve these goals? Like, 'cause they're on paper. It's like, okay, here's the target. Here's what I want. How do I go get it?
And it also taps into the power of the unconscious. I don't know if you know much about Nikolai Tesla. So he was a massive inventor. In fact, some would say he is credited with all of the inventions that Thomas Edison like patented. But one of his tactics was he would work on something over and over and over again. And when he hit a sticking point, he would write it down. He would set down his pad of paper, whatever, and he would go sleep. And then when he would wake up with the solution to the problem that he was stuck on. And he wasn't consciously awake the whole time. So his unconscious brain was constantly on solving that problem because that's where his focus was. So even though we're not consciously thinking about our goals, our unconscious mind is working the entire time to get us what we're focused on.
Yeah, that's fire, dude. And like, I'm not, by no means am I going to compare myself to Tesla or Edison. But like, I wake up every single morning with a journal, like it's right here in front of me, with all these crazy ideas that pop in my head that I just wake up to, right? And I was like, and I wake up, and first person I tell is my wife, Katie, and I can always tell it's a good idea how she responds, right? If I get no reaction, I'm like, okay, that was bad. Or if she's like, oh, and if she says something that's like, tell me more, I'm like, okay, maybe this is a good idea, right? But that's what that reminds me of. And I actually want to follow it up too with this idea of like the right words, right? And so like, obviously we're talking about thoughts here, but also being able to back that up with the right words, I think is super crucial. And being very, sort of looking for, being very deliberate about the words we use, I think is super powerful to remind ourselves we hear the thoughts that we're saying is really important. And so one thing that I do we have a almost 2-year-old daughter, is like, I'm super conscious of how we direct her. And with this idea of law of attraction, that I will not use negative things or negative words or phrases to her. I always will like reshift my frame to like what I want her to do rather than I don't want her to do. For like a great example of that is crying, right? Every kid cries. And so one of the things I've got her to do is like, when she starts crying, instead of saying, hey, stop crying, I said, Lainey, be happy. Hey, Lainey, be happy. And I'm telling you now, and it's so funny, like she'll be in the middle of crying. She's like, I'm happy. But it's like one of those little simple mindset shifts. But then I'm telling you, like 2 seconds later, she gets into a happy thing. Like, hey, be happy, be joyful, right? It becomes part of her second nature that instead of saying don't cry, it's like be happy. And I think it's reminded me to also, when I get in situations, to like not focus on negative. It's like focus on the positive. What am I actually want out of this? And when I'm able to like reframe that and able to say that, I hear it back, and it allows me to also continue to think on where we're going rather than the thing we don't want. Right? Oops. Okay. So this is what I talked about in the very beginning, and this is something you talked about too, Tim. But most people are unconscious of their thoughts, and they run on autopilot, right? Most people don't really understand how they got to where they do. Like, they live life by default. And so this is a great quote by James Allen. Like, you are today where your thoughts have brought you. You'll be tomorrow where your thoughts take you. So John, what does that quote like really mean to you? What does it say to you?
Well, to me, it's very empowering. It's a little scary because going back to that responsibility of, your thoughts do determine where you end up. So the empowerment there is that you're able to change your thoughts and actually be aware of what your subconscious is thinking, or your unconscious. Then you actually have the power to get wherever you want to be. So that's how I see that. It's just that very empowering and inspirational statement, even though there's some scariness behind it.
Yeah. Tim, what are your thoughts?
I honestly find this statement, or at least the James Allen quote, exciting, because there's freedom in knowing that you can control your destiny to some extent. Yeah. If you're running on unconscious, and I'm sure we've all been in this situation before in our life where it just feels like we're stuck. Yeah, I know we all have. We're just kind of running day to day through the motions. We're not really fully checked into life. We're not engaged. It feels like you're in a prison. It feels like if something's going to change, it's going to be a gift, or it's going to be some kind of happenstance chance that's going to change your fate.
Yeah.
But knowing that you have actually have control over your situation, it might not be instantaneous, but you have control of your situation. It's freeing, it's liberating. So I get excited by that. Like the fear concept of it, it excites me.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because, when you talk about most of us have been there, I think everybody has been there. And I think until you're actually really conscious, like you actually become very conscious of your thoughts and your decisions, like you pretty much have been living on default. And you've been living by just what either your parents told you, what the media told you, what your friends have been telling you, until you start to question about like, why am I doing this? Why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way, acting this way? Can you truly say that you're living your life by design? And so, like, I look at my life right now, something that I'm very conscious of. Like almost every little thing I do, I'm like, there's a reason why I'm doing it. And still, like there still comes times I'm like, okay, why am I doing this? And then I'll question it, and then I'll like say, okay, I'm either doing this because it makes sense or it doesn't, and then I remove it, right? And I look back at my life before like I would call myself like being a conscious creator. I'm like, how the hell did I get through life? Like, just literally, like, I just showed up. I'm like, no rhyme or reason, like, no schedule, no consistency. But it actually empowers me, just like Tim said. Like, I'm very empowered because I was not happy with my life. I was like struggling. I wanted more, and just like Tim said, like, I thought that the world owed me something. I felt like a victim. I feel like I didn't get what I deserved, and I saw the people getting what they wanted. I'm like, I should be able to get that. What I realized was that the thing that they were going for, like they knew what they wanted and they figured out how to get it. Where I was just expecting it to happen. I had this potential to get there, but I never actually acted on it or fulfilled it. And so I guess why should I believe any other different that it should just happen because I actually didn't do anything to get it? And to me, that actually was super powerful, like extremely powerful. So yeah. Any thoughts on that for you guys?
No, I
Yeah,
think
actually, with I got it. So one of my biggest breakthroughs lately was actually one of denial. I had been in denial for years and years and years that I had a fear of failure because it didn't feel that way to me, and yet I kept coming short of my goals. I certainly wasn't writing them down at the time either, but always coming short of my goals. I had a couple of what I would call major failures, and it was very perplexing to me. Like I understood myself pretty well, or so I thought, and I knew what I struggled with, but I was like, I know that I don't want to fail, so why do I keep failing? Well, until I accepted that I do have a fear of failure and that I'm actually constantly thinking about failure, I was destined for it because that's all I was thinking about. So that when I was running on autopilot, immense fear of failure, which I'm still breaking through, by the way, but I'm conscious of it, then it actually finally explained why I had so many what I would consider to be failures at those times. It was very, I just kind of smiled when I finally accepted, okay, yeah, it's there. I'm afraid. And I've been constantly thinking about not wanting to fail, and everything adds up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it takes a lot of courage internally to be able to admit some of the things that we might see as like shortcomings or things that we're like we don't live up to what we want other people to see us as. But when we're able to actually be super humble, let our egos go and truly be, our true self, as we talked about last week, it becomes easier. It becomes easier to like let those like fears and those feelings come in, absorb them, understand them, and then be able to handle them, right? In a way that serves you. Because ultimately, like it is your choice to let that be a negative thing or a positive thing, right? Like that fear of failure, it could be something that serves you, or it could be something that crushes you and hinders you and honestly paralyzes you.
Yes.
Right.
That's the best word for it.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, and you can probably relate to this. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was a really angry individual. In fact, this is kind of a funny / embarrassing story. They have a name on the construction crew to this day for when someone throws a fit, when someone loses their cool, they call it a Timmy. And the long story short is I would just blow up all the time. Like I would blow up, I would punch things, not people, but things. I would break stuff. And I always had this angst and this anger inside of me. And it wasn't until not too long ago, like maybe 6 months ago, that I had this realization that anger's gone now, completely gone. And I'm not inherently, I wasn't an angry child. I wasn't an angry young adult. It was only in my, I guess, my late teens and early 20s that I was like really angry. And it was because I was not actively in charge of my life at the time. I was unconsciously running through life. I was working in construction. It paid really well, but it wasn't something I enjoyed. And I was making zero efforts and zero, not even plans to grow out of that. In fact, I'd almost kind of consolidated myself to like, this is what I'm going to do forever. So I better get used to it, that kind of mentality. So I was running on autopilot, like I'm sure a lot of people are. And it wasn't until I finally cut the ties, broke the cord, and literally struck out on my own. I was on unemployment for like 6 months. I had like 1 or 2 clients, like broke as a joke. But I was happy because I knew what I wanted and I was going for what I wanted. I was intentionally moving in that direction. The anger dissipated. So I don't know, you can probably relate to that, but that's, to me, that's a really good, that's why this excites me, because I was angry when I didn't know about that control that I had. And now, even if the circumstances aren't great, it's better to have not great circumstances. It's better to be broke and be in control than to be well off and have zero control.
Yeah, that's fire, dude. That's exactly right, man. Like that. I think any sort of emotion that comes out in the form of like anger, sadness, like hate, it always has some sort of internal feeling of not being in control, right? Because internally, as we see the world, it truly is internal. Externally, as we see the world, truly is just internally how we actually see it, right? And that's why it's so important to choose to see the world through a positive lens or a negative lens, which is basically this idea of law of attraction, right? So let's talk about how we use this law of attraction with a belief breakthrough, right? And so obviously, like, okay, so now someone's like, okay, I want to use the law of attraction positively. I want to use it in a way that not just I start to like think really cool thoughts and they happen, but like, how do I actually have an action step? And that is truly through a belief breakthrough, which is a process that we chatted about in earlier episodes. And so using the law of attraction with belief breakthrough, what it does, it really helps us to change our dominant and persistent thoughts by changing our beliefs, right? The more powerful our core beliefs are, the more powerful our daily thoughts become, and the more we are able to attract into our lives. And so like a great example of this, like Tim just used in his last example, was that like, I thought that I was just meant to like work construction. I was just gonna like settle, right? Like that was a limiting belief that he had. And basically he broke through the belief pattern by realizing that like, did that belief serve him, right? By focusing on that, okay, this is just what I'm gonna be my whole life, like, it didn't serve him. He could tell internally that something wasn't right. And so he literally just reshifted his core beliefs on what he wanted in life and who he was. And now he's taking the actions on making it happen, right? So that's how I see it, like in an example that Tim literally just used. But John, tell me, like, how do you see the belief breakthrough process work for you in regards with using the law of attraction?
For me, it makes it more clear what I do want, and of course also what's holding me back from getting what I want. But there was a period there for, well, really most of my life that, I wanted to be successful. I knew I thought I was smart, and I knew that I wanted to have financial freedom and wanted to be my own boss and things like that. But I didn't really take any steps. So I was kind of like you were saying, Logan, just expecting the world to give it to me because I deserve that for being a smart guy. And so now with belief breakthrough, it's actually been possible for me to realize, okay, sure, I believe that I have the capacity for a lot of success, but if I don't believe that I am capable of taking steps, for example, like taking steps every single day, then I'm not going to do it. So with belief breakthrough, it's not only taught me like what I'm thinking to hold me back from what I'm trying to attract, or not trying, but hoping at that point really to attract, and instead telling me what I am truly trying to attract. So it's one thing to say, I want to be successful. Well, what does that mean? What does that success actually look like? And until you start doing the breakthroughs of what is holding you back, you're not going to know what success truly looks like to you.
Yeah, and core about the belief breakthrough that's probably easy for people is that you literally come up with your limiting belief, which is the thing you've been focused on the whole time. So it's like, what's holding you back? It's like, that's the thing that you've been attracted to. It's like, oh, like, I just don't think I'm worth it. I don't deserve to lose 50 pounds. Okay, and that's what you've been focused on, right? And so by making that the start of it, the start of the process, now you can go from like, why do you believe that? Like, is that belief serving you? Okay, no, it's like, well, like, is it cost like what is it costing you? It's like it's costing you happiness, fulfillment. Like, are you ready to let it go? Yeah, that's right. Well, let's replace that with a positive belief that actually serves you, and it puts you to where you're actually going to reach your goal and reach fulfillment. How about that, right? And now you start to upgrade this, and like that's what you focus on. So instead of you saying that I'm a fat person who can't lose weight, now you're like, I can do anything. I'm capable. I believe in me, right? Like these are some of the ways you can reshape that, and that's what you focus on. There's lots of different ways you can continue to focus on it. Everything from like writing it down to putting reminders in your phone to like practicing breakthroughs. There's like it's just up to you how you want to like start to see evidence of it. But the more and more you do that, the more and more places you put it in front of yourself so you can see it, then you believe it, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's just who you are, right? It just becomes part of your core belief patterns. So Tim, tell me your thoughts on this.
So the second part of the slide, the more powerful our core beliefs are, the more powerful our daily thoughts become. So this is going to be a great segue for me to finish that part of the story. So when I got out of the construction world, I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew, because at the time I was literally going to school to become a civil engineer, because I was going to take over the family business. I was going to paint roads black all over the world. That was what I was going to do. But I knew I didn't want to do it. So that was the first scary decision, was like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't that. So I cut the cord without like pure faith. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do. It wasn't for, maybe 6-8 months till I really decided what I want to do. Cause it could have been anywhere from, I switched my major to exercise physiology. I thought I wanted to work with athletes. I thought I wanted to be some high profile strength coach in the NFL or collegiate sports like D1. But I remember this very specific point when I got obsessed, when I figured it out, or like I wouldn't even say I figured it out. It was like almost like I got struck by lightning, like something happened. And this was, gosh, it was a while ago, probably 8, 9, 10 years ago. My ex and I at the time, one of our favorite things to do was to drive around town and go to open houses with no intention of buying them. We just wanted to pretend like we were rich and go see open houses and dress fancy and get a walk around these $1 million houses and pretend like we were going to buy them. And we walked in this one house, and like I just saw her eyes just kind of like light up, like, I want this. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that like whatever I'm doing right now is never gonna get us there. And so then I could not sleep for like 4 or 5 days. And it wasn't like a normal insomniac episode. I was obsessed with this thought of how am I going to do this? And then that thought like evolved into, okay, if I want this to happen, what am I passionate about and who am I going to serve and how am I going to do that? And that's when it dawned on me that it's not going to be the athletes. It's not going to be, the collegiate sports. It's going to be helping the everyday person, because my background is very much an overweight background. I struggled with weight my entire life. And I remembered exactly how impactful it was when a coach helped me, and it changed my life. It literally did. So I stayed up all night for like 4, 5, 6 nights in a row. I was reading every single piece of information I could get my hands on, all the way from, this is well before Alex Hormozi like started his like Bedros Keuilian, Craig Ballantyne. I was reading, I'm trying to Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. I read Psycho-Cybernetics, like all of these impactful books that really helped me hone in on what I wanted. And literally from that moment until the day that I opened my gym was less than a year. So it was literally less than 12 months. And at that time, I think I had 6 clients. 6 clients. I didn't know a thing about marketing. I didn't know a thing about selling. I didn't know a thing about hiring or firing or taxes. None of that stuff. I knew nothing. But from that day, it was less than 12 months before we actually opened our doors, and we opened our doors with just shy of 200 members.
That's awesome.
So when we talk about thoughts becoming powerful, they are super, super powerful. Like I was obsessed. I could not stop thinking about it.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, right? And it just really goes to show you like how powerful like your attention, which is basically your thoughts, are. And like when you get zoned in on something, like you'll do anything to make it happen. And so I'll actually like do like a counter example though, if someone is trying to lose weight, is oftentimes because they don't have belief in themselves, they'll actually look for reasons to sabotage themselves, right? They'll look for reasons to go off track. And it's because they're not 100% certain that what they're doing is going to get them there. So because that certainty is not there, because they don't have those, like the core beliefs around what they're doing is not strong enough, their daily thoughts start to weaken, and then their actions, of course, weaken as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love to sit down in front of somebody, and I love to say like, hey, if you believe that if I told you just to do one thing, you just do that thing every single day for the next year, that you would guarantee that you would get to your goals, would you do it? And almost everyone says, yeah.
Just one thing?
Just one thing. And you knew for 100% certainty that you could do that one thing. Like, do you believe you could get to your goals? Almost everybody says yes. Like, therein lies the difference, is that the only thing that's different is that you don't have 100% certainty in what you're doing right now, and that's why you don't go all in, because you're still wishy-washy. You're still thinking about what's all the negative things that could happen. What ifs? What if I fail again? What if I embarrass myself? What if I don't? Like, what if I invest all this money and it doesn't work out? What if I invest all this time and it doesn't work out? Right? You're too focused over here. It's like, focus on what you want, and like, no matter what, you're gonna make it happen. It doesn't matter if it takes you 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, right? It's the artificial timelines that the people put on themselves to get to goals. I think is actually one of the biggest killers, is because they have false expectations of when certain things should come to fruition, when they should actually be achieved. And if you actually remove that timeline and just say like, if it was going to take you the next 2 years of your life to dedicate your life to you getting the best shape of your life, to your goals that you just talked about, right? That's all you focus on for 2 years. Would it be worth it to you to live the next 10, 20, 50 years of your life, not only like feeling good, looking good, being happy, being fulfilled, but just knowing that you did something for 2 years and like you put the work in, and you enjoyed the journey? Like, would that be worth it to you?
I think the important thing to keep in mind is those 2 years are going to go by regardless of whether or not you go all in or not.
And they're going to go by regardless. You're exactly right. Right. And so do you want to continue to focus on things that are not going to serve you, the things, the what ifs, the what if I fail, the what if I'm not successful, the what if I like do this all over again? Or are you going to focus on, I'm going to make this happen no matter what? And that's what you said with your gym when you opened up. It's like, I'm going to make it happen. Right? Like, you had no idea how to, like, you had no idea the how. You had a strong why, you had a strong, clear vision of like what you wanted. Like this back here, it didn't matter, because as you did it, you figured it out. Right? And that's one of the biggest things I've learned in my life, is that when I just go all in, like, I don't know all the answers either, but as soon as I get in it, it forced me to make the decision, and my decision tree is really easy. Does it get me close to my goals, or is it going to feel like my goals? Right? And that's ultimately like, and you always don't know the right answer, but in my belief is that it will. And then I make the decision, I do it, and then all of a sudden the thing happens, and then I read that like, oh, like that didn't get me close to my goals, but I believed in myself enough to continue to go. So like now I readjust based on the new information. What is going to be the right decision to get me to like still closer to that goals? Mm-hmm. Right now, it just becomes a game of, like you said, like writing things down, going to sleep, waking back up, and figuring out the problem. Right?
Yeah, one of my favorite stories. I had a client a while ago, and I call this moment the epiphany moment, and we can kind of rename that as the breakthrough moment. And every client, or every person, will not even say client, every person that is dedicated to a goal, and we're just going to use fitness as an example here, at some point will experience this epiphany or breakthrough moment. And his name was Caleb, and he joined an 8-week challenge. We had an 8-week challenge, and he was a larger guy. He had a few health issues, and he was so disheartened. He went through the 8 weeks. He busted his butt every single day, followed the nutrition to a T, did everything that you would, the X's and O's. He did all of the X's and O's, and he lost like 4 pounds in 8 weeks. It was so frustrating for him. And I had to sit down, had a talk with him at the end of the 8 weeks. And I said, man, like, you've done awesome. You've built these habits. Just do me a solid. Just keep going. I promise you, just keep going. And he was so unsure. Like, I put in all this effort. I've done all these things. My body's been sore. I'm eating differently than I used to. But I got him. I talked him into it. I talked to him, just give me another month. Like, give me another month. Within the next 6 months, he lost over 80 pounds. After initially losing 4 pounds in the first 8 weeks. And what happened was there was like the month after the challenge, he started to lose a little bit of weight. And it gave him that confidence to keep going. So a lot of times when we talk to clients or people that are struggling, it's really tough to keep going when you're not seeing that scale go down, when you're not seeing the inches come in, when you're not seeing the tangible result that you have in your head. But what's more important than the result is the process that sets up the result. Now, if we can get someone to build those habits into their lifestyle, the sleep, the nutrition, the exercise, the stress management, the belief breakthroughs, like all of these things, those build the foundation for the tower that is the result that you're looking for. And that's all. It took him 8 weeks to build that foundation. Some people take 2 weeks. Some people take 4 weeks. Some people take years. So my encouragement for anybody that's listening is if you're struggling right now, if you're struggling with my weight hasn't went down, I'm plateaued, stay the course, stay the process. You are doing the work every single day. You are building that foundation. And the larger that foundation is, the higher you can build that tower.
Yeah. And the big thing that you just said to really focus on is the things you can't control, like the outcomes of like the weight loss, inches lost, things like that. Like those are outcomes. Like those you can't inherently control. What you can control is your actions, right? You can control your words, you can control your thoughts. And if you do those things long enough, like would it be fair for you to be able to believe that if you did those things long enough for a long enough timeline, a year or 2 years, that you would eventually see that outcome? Right. And I think that ultimately that's what it comes down to is process long enough, any outcome you want in the world. Right. All right. And let's finish it out here. So let's actually get some clarity on the law of attraction. Like, so here's a really cool example of what you can do to get clarity on what you want in life. Right. So again, we talked about everybody knows what they don't want. I'm sure you know what you don't want. That's good because you use that in your breakthrough process so you can have a good starting point. Ultimately, you also need to get clarity on what you do want. And so for everybody at home, I want you to write down the 3 things that you want to attract in the following areas: your health, your wealth, your connections. So this is like your relationships, and then your fulfillment, like what makes you happy, like what gives you personal power. Those are the 3 things you write down, and you start to figure out what you want in life. And if you want to follow that up, I would do that every single day. And I actually do that every single day. Tim talked about doing it every single day is writing your goals down every day. Like see what you want, see it on paper, write it down. And here's the part that I realized after doing this for a while, I was like, my goals change. The things I want in my life actually change as I grow, as I start to learn more, as I get more evidence. I'm like, this goal doesn't really make sense anymore. I want this, right? And when I continue to do that, I become more clear on what I want. And I think that's the biggest mistake people make with goals is they write them down once. You know, about 2.5 months ago, January 1st, someone writes their goals down and they don't look at them again until January 1st, 2022, right? Like I literally looked at my goals every single day for years. And I believe them because I see them every single day. And I don't know if maybe this is fate, right? Or maybe this is just me attracting it. As I literally told my wife this morning, as I'm on the treadmill, after I told her all these crazy ideas I had, I was like, today, Katie, like all those goals we wrote down for 2021, like the beginning of the year, like we're gonna hit them all. Like I truly believe in my heart that we're going to hit all of them. That's how confident I feel right now because I've been looking at them every single day, and I just feel like I'm putting the effort in. I have the thought process right, and I'm saying the right words, and the actions, like they will eventually succumb to the outcomes that I wrote down. They have to. And if I don't finish in 2021, I will do it in 2022. I already told myself that, like, I will finish it. If it takes me till 2022, whatever, I will do it. If it takes me till 2023, I'll do what it takes, right? And when you come out from that point of view, it's like, like all of a sudden the pressure goes off of like, what if I don't accomplish it in 2021? What if they don't happen? It's okay. Reassess, learn the lesson, put them on 2022, right? Like keep going. And that's the right frame to move through when it comes to goals. So Tim, final thoughts on getting clarity on what you want in life.
I think it's fundamental. The way I kind of see this entire system, kind of analogy would be a factory. So let's pretend it's a jelly bean factory. Your end result is jelly beans. You have all these levers, these conveyor belts, these pulleys, these people all these cogs in the system with the end result of making jelly beans. But at the very beginning, there is a software of some sort, some kind of program that tells the machine to make jelly beans. If that software, if that program is, if let's say it's coded to make, I don't know, jalapeno poppers, you can have all the systems in place, but you're not going to end up with jelly beans. So I think it's fundamental to start with the core program before even thinking about the process. So that's what this is right here. That is writing down those things that you actually want to attract in your life, the things you want to accomplish. That's your program.
That's fire. That's great. That's a great analogy. But
It is.
my question is, why jelly beans?
My question is, why not jelly beans?
That's a great question. John, final thoughts on getting clarity.
Yeah, kind of continuing with Tim here is we all have a process, whether we realize it or not. There's a process that we're sticking to, and it's getting us somewhere. Most of the time, or I shouldn't say most of the time, for a lot of people, that process is taking you to a place you don't want to be, whether it's with your health, whether it's with your wealth, your connections, or your fulfillment. And because that process exists due to the software that Tim just mentioned. So what's going to happen if you have the jalapeno popper software or the jelly beans system? I don't know what it's going to make, but it is going to make something, right? Maybe some horrible like abomination of a combination of the two, which I can't imagine being very good. But so it is imperative truly to in order to create your process or even have a process that does anything positive for you, understand what that process is supposed to do in the first place. Because if you don't have that understanding, you will not get where you want to be because you don't even know where you want to be. No. That's really the gist of the entire conversation today. You have to know what you want in order to get it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's really it. The law of attraction, to get clarity on it, is like literally figuring out what you want. And just because you don't know what you want right now doesn't mean that you can't work towards getting that. I think that's the great thing that Tim talked about too, is that like just because you don't know what you want right now, like that's okay. Like it's actually okay to start with what you don't want, but always understand that you got to figure out eventually what you do want. So then all of a sudden you figure out what you want, so your mind can start to explore the solutions. You can start to explore the way to get there. And ultimately that's what is it, and I'm going to get you to your goals is by you figuring out understand what the problem is, but then finding the solution to it. And so the first way to do it is just understand what you want, write it down, and maybe as you write them down consistently, I definitely recommend doing it every single day. You get more and more clear on exactly what you want, and you see it enough. Then you obviously just have to visualize it enough. Then you get woken up in the middle of the night by ideas on how to actually make that thing happen. And then you just literally speak it out loud, say it to somebody. If you have a spouse, if you have a friend, like say your words. Like sometimes that's the best thing that you can do, just get it out. And like, oh, silly, or it's a good idea, right? And then obviously you start taking action on it, and then actions will eventually lead to you achieving your goal. And so that's about as simple as we can get it. Get clear on what you want, speak it, action it, outcome it. Boom, all verbs. Nailed it. All right. Well, that's all we got for today on the law of attraction. We'll be back next week for some more. But thank you, Mr. John Bodner and Mr. Tim Cruz, for your insights today. And we'll all be back again next week with another episode of the Limitless Mindset. So happy Thursday, and we'll chat with you guys again soon. Bye.
Next time.